My daughter-in-law didn't ask for my house. She had me declared a tenant at sufferance in my own home, presenting a forged quitclaim deed that made her the sole owner after my son's death. A garden teaches you patience. You plant a seed and wait. You learn that some things need deep roots to survive. I never thought I'd need roots that deep to keep a roof over my head, or that the storm trying to uproot me would be the woman my son loved. The eviction notice arrived like a frost in May, killing everything. Vanessa stood on my porch, my son David's widow, with her new boyfriend Carter looming behind her. "Rosemary, let's not make this difficult," Vanessa said, her voice cold as she thrust the paper into my hands. "The house is mine now. Legally. David would have wanted me taken care of." Carter gave a smug, lawyerly smile. "We're giving you 30 days. Be reasonable. You don't want the hassle of a court fight at your age." "My age," I said, my voice trembling with a fury I could barely contain. "I planted every tree on this property. I designed this garden. This is my life." "No," Vanessa corrected, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "It's your past. It's my future." I felt the ground fall away. The walls that held my memories were being stolen. I stumbled next door to Mr. Henderson's, the papers shaking in my hand. He read them, his face hardening. "A quitclaim deed? This is dated after David's funeral." I nodded, tears finally coming. "This is fraud, Rosemary," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "And she's an amateur." He returned with a file. "You and Robert used a transfer on death deed, remember?" I insisted. He opened it. "The house was never yours to give, Vanessa. And it was never hers to take." He pointed to a clause. "Your husband was wiser than any of us knew. He named a contingent beneficiary." "Who?" I whispered. Mr. Henderson allowed himself a small, grim smile. "The County Botanical Garden. They have a very good legal team. I suggest we give them a call." Our counterattack was a thing of beauty. I played the heartbroken, confused mother, secretly recording conversations where Vanessa and Carter discussed getting the old lady out and bulldozing the place for condos. Mr. Henderson filed a quiet title, action, and called the Botanical Garden. Their lawyers, ferocious in defense of their future endowment, descended on Vanessa like wasps. Facing financial ruin, Vanessa fought back with poison. She came to me with photos of my late husband, Robert, with another woman. "He had a secret family," she hissed. "This house was bought with dirty money. I'll tell everyone your perfect marriage was a lie. Drop the lawsuit, or I'll destroy his memory." I was gutted. But Mr. Henderson helped me find the truth. The other woman was Robert's estranged sister, Clara. The photos were from their secret reconciliation, a meeting I had blessed. I turned the tables. I invited Clara to a press conference. Standing together, we told the story of Robert's final, loving act to heal his family, exposing Vanessa's cruelty. The court voided the fraudulent deed. Vanessa and Carter faced criminal charges. I remained in my home, the garden blooming more fiercely than ever. They thought my grief made me weak. They thought my memories were shackles. But they learned that a woman who has cultivated life from soil knows a thing or two about rooting out weeds. My home is my story. And I'm not done writing it yet. The victory was sweet, but the garden felt different. The roses David had helped me plant by the back fence now seemed to whisper of betrayal as much as love. The legal battle was over, but the emotional war for my peace of mind had just begun. Vanessa and Carter, awaiting trial, were like a persistent blight I couldn't quite eradicate. The first sign was a series of anonymous offers on the house, each more aggressive than the last. Then a code enforcement officer showed up, citing a complaint about uncontrolled vegetation being a fire hazard. My meticulously designed garden, a fire hazard. It was a petty, bureaucratic attack, but it felt like Vanessa's fingerprints were all over it. Mr. Henderson saw the pattern. "They can't win in court, Rosemary, so they're trying to make your life here so miserable you'll leave voluntarily. It's harassment." This time, my response wasn't defensive. It was strategic. I installed security cameras. I documented every interaction. And I went back to the Botanical Gardens lawyers with a new proposal, a conservation easement. I would legally deed the development rights of my property to them in exchange for a tax break and their perpetual protection. The land would forever be a green space, its value as a building lot extinguished. They agreed immediately. Signing the easement was like pouring concrete around my roots. The anonymous offers stopped. The harassment ceased. I had made my property worthless to vultures like Carter. But the deepest healing came from an unexpected place. A young couple, friends of my late son, visited me. They were expecting their first child. Seeing their nervous excitement, a thought bloomed in my mind, as natural as a perennial returning in spring. "I'm creating a trust," I told Mr. Henderson the next day. "Not for the house. For the knowledge." The Rosemary Green Legacy Trust would offer scholarships and grants to young landscape architects, specifically for projects that integrated native plants and created community green spaces. The trust would be managed by the Botanical Garden, with the condition that the director of horticulture always have a key to my garden to use it as a living classroom. The final piece fell into place on a bright morning. I was showing a group of students the medicinal herbs in my garden when a familiar car slowed down. It was Vanessa. She watched for a moment, her face a mask of stunned disbelief, before driving away. She saw that her attempt to erase me had, in fact, multiplied my presence in the world. That evening, I sat on my porch with Mr. Henderson. The air was sweet with jasmine. "You've built a fortress, Rosemary," he said, admiring the newly installed trellis of climbing roses. "No, Arthur," I said, using his first name for the first time. "A fortress is for keeping things out. I've built an ecosystem. It sustains itself. It supports other life. And it will endure long after I'm gone." The story of my home was no longer just about loss and betrayal. It was about legacy. Vanessa and Carter had tried to steal a piece of land. In doing so, they had forced me to plant something far more permanent, a future. The weeds were gone. What remained was a garden and a peace that would last for generations. The Legacy Trust took root with a vigor that surprised even me. The first recipient, a young woman named Lena, used her grant to transform a vacant lot into a community food forest. Seeing her work featured in the local paper, a profound sense of purpose settled over me. The bitterness, which had been a cold stone in my chest, finally dissolved. This was the real reclamation. My friendship with Arthur Henderson deepened into something quiet and essential. Our shared victory had forged a bond that went beyond neighborly courtesy. He became my first reader, my strategic advisor, and the person I shared evening tea with on the porch, watching the light fade from the garden. The trial of Vanessa and Carter came and went with a swift, clinical finality. They accepted a plea deal. I didn't attend the sentencing. Arthur went for me and reported back with a simple, "It's done." The news felt distant, like weather in another country. They were no longer characters in my story. One afternoon, Lena brought her students to my garden for a workshop. As I showed them how to identify edible weeds and explained the symbiotic relationship between the lavender and the roses, I felt a presence watching from the gate. It was Vanessa. She stood there, thinner, older, her sharp edges softened by what I hoped was regret. Our eyes met for a long moment. There was no anger left in my gaze, only a quiet pity. She turned and walked away, and I knew I would never see her again. It was the true, final closure. That evening, I sat with Arthur, the scent of night-blooming jasmine wrapping around us like a blessing. "It's complete, isn't it?" I said, not needing to define what it was. He nodded, his hand covering mine on the armrest between our chairs. "It is. The last page has been written." But he was wrong. A story doesn't end when the conflict is resolved. It enters a new phase. My life was no longer about defending a plot of land, but about tending a legacy. The garden was no longer just my sanctuary. It was a living textbook, a source of scholarships, a promise to the future. I looked at Arthur, at the garden, at the house that had weathered so many storms. The villains were gone. The hero was at peace. The final chapter wasn't an ending, but a gentle, satisfying transition into an epilogue of contentment. The narrative of loss and betrayal had been expertly, permanently, edited into a story of resilience and love. and I was finally free to simply enjoy reading it. The epilogue of my life settled into a rhythm as natural as the changing seasons. The Legacy Trust flourished, its impact branching out into the community like a well-pruned tree. Lena's success sparked a movement, and my garden became a pilgrimage for young landscape architects, a living testament to what could be built with patience and love. Arthur and I, no longer bound by a shared enemy, discovered a deeper companionship. Our conversations on the porch drifted from legal strategy to memories of our late spouses, from the habits of nesting robins to our favorite books. It was a quiet, late-life friendship built on a foundation of mutual respect and hard-won peace. One spring morning, as we watched a new group of students sketching the perennial borders, Arthur turned to me. "You know, Rosie," he said, his voice soft, "they tried to bury you. But they didn't know they were planting a seed." He was right. The betrayal had been a harsh winter, but it had forced a dormant strength to the surface. My legacy was no longer just the physical house or garden, but the knowledge and inspiration being passed on to a new generation. The story of my life was no longer a solitary volume on a shelf, but a series being written in the projects and passions of the students I supported. I looked out at the vibrant, thriving garden, heard the eager voices of the students, and felt the steady, quiet presence of my friend beside me. The final page hadn't been about victory or revenge. It was about integration. The pain had been composted, transformed into nourishment for something new and beautiful. The story was, at last, complete. Not with a dramatic climax, but with a profound and peaceful sense of a circle closing, a design finally realized. And it was more satisfying than any ending I could have ever imagined. The last student had left, the garden gate clicking shut with a sound of perfect finality. Arthur dozed in the wicker chair beside me, the afternoon sun gilding the pages of the book open on his lap. In the quiet, I could feel it, not an ending, but a seamless joining. The trust was its own living thing now, the garden a teacher that no longer needed my voice. My story had branched out, taken root in other soils. I looked at Arthur, at the gentle rise and fall of his shoulders, and knew our story was still being written in quiet commas and comfortable silences. They had tried to build their future on the rubble of mine. But a life, like a garden, cannot be ruined, only changed. The light is lower now, the color softer. But it is still beautiful. It is still growing. And for now, that is more than enough.